This is Montreal Now with Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall. CJAD 800.
That is, of course, Jim MENNIE of the Montreal Gazette. It's deja vu all over again. Another Friday. And we have Dr. Boileau and Christian Dubé saying nothing to see here.
Well, there's nothing to see here, but, it's kind of funny because today you also had PQ-MNA's Joël Arsenault and Pascal Bérubé, who some folks suspect may end up being the entirety of the PQ caucus after October, saying that we need basically a pandemic commissar, an independent individual who will oversee the province's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, because it is unthinkable, impossible, that the CAC and their coterie of crisis unit members should be making decisions behind closed doors, especially in the context of an election campaign, which for all intents and purposes has already begun. Now, I think our listeners are sharp enough to realize that this in and of itself is somewhat disingenuous, but it does point out that we'll be hearing a lot more about the pandemic, not from a medical point of view, David, but from a political point of view. Of course, the Legault government's record on how it handled the pandemic, how it dealt with the crises in, for example, CHSLDs, curfews, vaccinations, the whole nine yards. That is going to be dredged up over and over and over again by the PQ and the other opposition parties in an effort to undercut what appears to be the CAC's insurmountable lead. But you know what? They may not have the statistical odds on their side, but they may have the virus on their side, David, because if this thing starts to catch fire again, if this thing compels, Dr. Boileau or Minister Dubé, or God help us, everyone's favorite Quebec Premier, François Legault, to hold the presser and say, sorry, but that thing I told you to put behind us, that pandemic,
it's right in front
of us, and we're going to hit a wall. Well, can you imagine? Can you imagine the nuclear grade fallout we're going to have if in an election campaign we have to start going back to the same regulations that this government told us weren't?
Especially with the school year coming up right in the middle of the fall campaign. I mean, the start of the school year is going to be right in the middle of the campaign. And the second place political party right now in the polling is the Conservative Party of Quebec with their new slogan, Libre chez nous, free at home, our freedom.
Our freedom. I think that's the most appropriate and it sort of covers all the bases that nice Eric James, the Quebec Conservative leader, has been trying to hit. But, there's a difference between, say, talking in theory and actually, working things in practice, even over the course of a campaign. You'll excuse me the metaphor in these violent times, but in the campaign, they're using live ammunition. This is going to be for real stuff. So every single thing that Eric James says is going to be subject to far more scrutiny than it has been thus far. I mean, he's a new thing. He's a shiny thing. Newsrooms love that, right? They this is the new guy. Oh, look, he's doing well in the polls. He's in a statistical tie with the Liberals right now, and a lot of that support's clumped up around Quebec City, much in the way a lot of the Liberal support's clumped around in Montreal. But all that said, sooner or later, the wattage on the spotlights focused on Monsieur James, and indeed all the other candidates, all the other leaders, is going to be severely increased, and that's when the fur is going to fly.
Yeah, I tell you, if the next press conference with Christian Dubé and Dr. Boileau is at 11 or 2 p.m., the later it is in the day, you're going to know that something really serious is happening.
On the show, we had decided that we were going to designate things by their importance, as you quite rightly say, by their time. So the thing is, an 11 o'clocker, it's a day at the office. A 5 o'clocker, look out. 7 o'clock, put on your hard hat, incoming artillery, So it's like, we know the various, the worse the news, the later the press conference.
Yeah, yesterday was 9 a.m., so we're beginning. Yeah. We're just at the beginning.
I mean, for crying out loud, David, when a Quebec cabinet minister begins a press conference by saying, well, we don't really have anything important to announce.
But he did say it's under control for now. I thought that was huge.
For now.
I thought that was huge. The saying for now in French, I thought that was massive.
Well, listen, I have to tell you right now, where people are, I don't know about you, as I've always said on the show, I'm proud to say I have a much larger circle of social acquaintances who are outside of the bubble where I work. And it's all white noise right now. People are not paying attention to this right now, which is why if the government is compelled by overwhelming evidence to start taking steps that will take us back in time, even a mask mandate right now, I'd say that would cost the CAC a good 10%, a good 10 points in the next poll.
So that means that could be a real race then.
Well, you never know. But on the other hand, listen, it's not exactly that the opposition parties, I'm looking at you, Quebec Liberals, have been, reacting with ninja-like reflexes.
No, nobody's coalescing. Nobody's taking advantage of this. Nobody at all. I want to hear you on the Conservative Party race, the Patrick Brown mess, and who it's going to benefit. Some people say Jean Charest. Jean Charest is spinning that it will help him, and the Poilievre people are saying it's a done deal. It's over.
Straight up, listen, if it does benefit Jean Charest, politically speaking, Jean Charest will be next. In fact, he is next now. He's the target. He's the main target. There are so many contradictions in this whole Brown imbroglio.
Yeah.
We have a whistleblower who says, well, he told me it was okay to get a paycheck from a company while I was working on the campaign, and she was working as a consultant. Apparently, she wasn't a consultant on electoral regulations, David, because this seems to be, this ignorance seems to have been at the foundation of everything. All that said, I've said this before. If this turns in, if it becomes clear that this is an irrevocable coronation of Pierre Poilievre, you will see a schism. You will see people break away from the party. I think you see individual MPs for the time being sit as independents. I think a lot of people have seen that the direction that Mr. Poilievre wants to take the Conservative Party has got very little to do with many Canadians, what I describe as political orphans, describe as conservatism, at least in this country. So it's already been ugly. And plus, I don't know, were you kind of surprised that, there was a range of sanctions against him? They could have fined him. He offered to reimburse the money and whatever. They kicked him out. They went from zero to
1,000.
The firing squad wall in 24 hours.
Yeah, I know. And there can't be any type of due process. This is a totally private matter. But we'll see what Elections Canada does with this. But there's a lot of questions. But I'm curious about what you're saying, that this could create a schism, because if I look at the U.S., Jim, the fact is that the Republicans were transformed, and all the sensible Republicans fell into the line and just vowed allegiance to the new Lord, and very few Republicans left the party. There was no schism. So I wonder if a lot of these MPs were really going to put in jeopardy their $150K a year salary and their safe seats.
Well, I have to tell you. They also have to ask themselves, are we ever going to be a government? And they also have to ask, and listen, I don't want to suggest that, our American neighbors have the monopoly on political cravenness and cowardice. Okay? I've seen enough of that nonsense here over the course of my career.
Sure.
But that said, I don't think Jean Charest, who I wouldn't describe as being an impetuous individual, got into this thinking that, one wrong thing and the whole house of cards comes down.
Right.
I think he knows that this is a contest, and let's say it out loud, it's a contest between him and Stephen Harper. And there's been bad blood between those two guys ever since then Premier Jean Charest took a federal transfer payment and turned it into a tax cut. So I think things have been a bit murky between those two.
Definitely.
But and Stephen Harper even said, I'm not going to stand by here with my arms crossed while this guy tries to take over the party.
Yeah.
But I think there's enough of a desire for not going down the road that Mr. Poilievre seems to be taking the party, and not having to be held hostage by the perpetual bromide-making machine that is the Trudeau Liberals. I think people want to have a government that, knows what they want. And, I'm not getting that reading. I'm not getting that sonar ping off the Liberals. But I just find that, up until recently, with every passing day, Pierre Poilievre seems to be having a contest with himself on what new outrageous statement he could make. So
we will definitely continue this conversation on Monday. Have a great weekend.
You too, buddy.